Hello, friends, and welcome into Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. I am today's host, Tom Downey, here to discuss some news around Denver, kind of twofold, actually, involving Ja'Wuan James. First, the more Denver-specific side of it, namely that James, as had been expected, has filed a grievance against the Denver Broncos over them voiding his guaranteed money in 2021 and in 2022. Now, James had been guaranteed $10 million this upcoming season and 2022. They'd been guaranteed for just generally in 2021, $10 million. $5 million of 2022 had been guaranteed for injury, which Ja'Wuan James did suffer. He blew out his Achilles away from the facility. And beyond just the Denver side of this here, this carries some pretty significant implications across the NFL. Denver has pushed, and the NFL has pushed, hey, if you get hurt away from the team facility, that is a non-football injury. We will not cover you for injuries. That guaranteed money can be voided. Denver chose to do that. Now, we will see what this NFL CBA drawn-out grievance process looks like here. Denver wins, they save that money on their salary cap. If they don't, well, then guess what? It's going to have to be charged to them in the end. So, Denver fans, unless you're cheering for Ja'Wuan James, which I would get if you are probably hoping that Denver ends up winning this grievance and it benefits them in the long run. This will take some time. The lawyers also represented Colin Kaepernick, who won his dispute against the NFL a couple years ago. There's a lot going on here with Denver that will have to be played out. We will see what happens. One quick small note here I also want to mention. There is a somewhat claim in this lawsuit that the Denver Broncos were not COVID compliant within Colorado, and that's why James chose to work away from the facility. That could be a big deal in this. We'll see if that actually is proven true or not in this grievance case. Now, the other quick note here on James, well, he's found a new team, as you kind of saw at the bottom of your screen. The Baltimore Ravens have picked him up on a 2-year deal, limited guaranteed money this year. He gets $2.5 million this season, up to $5 million in incentives in 2022. So it's kind of a 1-year deal with a team option. I don't know what the cancellation language was in his contract. If the Broncos lose the grievance, they might say $50K because James signed, but we'll see on that front. So back to the overall dispute here going on between these two sides. Pick one for me. Who you with? Are you cheering for Ja'Wuan James to win the grievance and get some more money? Type in J. Or are you on Team Denver Broncos because you want to save some salary cap? And let's be honest here, James wasn't very good or healthy anyway. Get your votes in. J for James or B for the Broncos. Now, Denver's already made it pretty clear they found their replacement, namely Bobby Massey on the offensive line. They signed him. I'll also make a quick note, they did sign Cam Fleming as well, as a more minor aside on that front. The money going to Cam Fleming, less than what had been originally reported. It is very much clearly swing tackle money, not like as high as it had been reported. It's more like a 1-year, under $2 million deal, I believe. But Massey is going to be the team's new right tackle. Now, I could see a scenario maybe where they kick Dalton Reisner out to guard and then start Miners, or came out a tackle, and then start Miners at guard. That feels a bit unlikely, having brought in Bobby Massey. He's the guy, at least for the short term, at the right tackle spot. Next year in the NFL draft, you know what? Things might end up changing. Whether it's the draft, NFL free agency, or anything around the Denver Broncos, we got you guys covered. Hit that big red button and subscribe today. It's youtube.com/BroncosTV. That link right there at the bottom of your screen. If you want all the best Denver Broncos news and rumors on YouTube, well, you've come to the right place. Let's chat Justin Simmons now, who PFF, Pro Football Focus, had ranked as the NFL's #1 safety in the NFL. And of course, he is now, by the way, the highest paid safety in the NFL. Now, whenever you're ranking players, there's always a agreement about, okay, who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. If a guy you think is #1 ends up being ranked 3, 4, or 5, that's just disrespect. In general, I don't think anyone who is of sound mind would be able to argue that Justin Simmons is not at least one of the best safeties. Whether he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, Simmons is a stud. Now, here's how PFF had ranked the top 5. The aforementioned Simmons, he's #1. Harrison Smith is #2. John Johnson, who went from the Rams to the Browns, is #3. Marcus Williams is number 4, and Minkah Fitzpatrick is number 5. 5 guys in total there, and I'll also make note that 2 of those guys just got paid, Justin Simmons, Williams, and Fitzpatrick getting long-term deals in the not-too-distant future in all likelihood. The guy we've seen for Denver, though, Justin Simmons, and I've mentioned this many a time on our chat sports videos around safeties in general and the NFL in general. He's awesome, man. There is so little that he's not able to do. He is a fantastic playmaker in the back end. 9 pass breakups, 5 interceptions this past year. 3 tackles for loss. Well, he's a good tackler, too. 96 this year, and he's done it back-to-back years. This is not a one-year wonder who did not produce in 2019 and then broke out in 2020. The Denver Broncos said, yes, we're going to franchise tag you, and also, maybe go prove it again one more year before we give in to the demands of your agent there. And he did. He was, I would argue, just as good as he was in 2020 as he was in 2019, even if the team maybe was a little bit different in terms of the supporting cast around him. But for Denver, you got yourself one of the best young safeties in the NFL. He got paid every penny he was worth, and frankly, it could have been even higher. And by the way, quick note here, in a year, 2 years, when guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick get paid, Justin Simmons will no longer be the highest paid safety in the NFL. That's how contracts work in the NFL. But I'm sure there's always debate about whether or not Simmons truly is the best safety in the NFL. Is he number 1? Is he 2 or 3? I can't justify going any lower than number 3, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Is Justin Simmons the best safety in the NFL? Type in 1 for yes, or you can type in 2 for no. What do you guys think? Is he the best safety in the NFL? Look, he and Kareem Jackson certainly form a very dynamic duo when it comes to the safety position there. They've invested recent draft picks as well on the back end. But as good as this secondary is overall, with all the investments that they've made, I still think Justin Simmons is the best secondary piece. I don't want to insult any Von Miller fans or if Von himself is watching here, because it's probably still Von Miller the best player. Next year, though, whether or not Miller's on the roster or not, I think it's Justin Simmons' turn to be not just the best defensive player on this roster, but the best player on this team. Whether he's number 1 safety, number 2, he's awesome. And I do want to give PFF's credit for ranking him so highly.